Redevelopment AG Board meeting Tuesday, November 26, 2024. I'd like to stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, have roll, please.
Chairman John A. Coover.
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Linda Rodriguez. Here. Member David Mueller.
Here.
Member Robert Hubbard. Let the record show that Member Robert Hubbard is absent from tonight's meeting. Member Lisa Burke.
Here.
City Attorney Nancy Meyer.
Here.
City Manager Matthew Cobbler.
Here. Okay, I have a set of board minutes to approve for 9/10. Is that motion?
Motion to approve board minutes from 9/10.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, comments from the general public. I do not have anyone signed up. Anyone by show of hands like to speak? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to comments from the city manager. Pass this. Matt Copley for his comments. No comments? No comments. Okay, moving on. Comments from the board. I'll start with, to my right this time, Member Mueller.
No comments.
Vice Chair Rodriguez.
I'm good, thank you.
Member Burke.
No comments.
I will have none. Okay, moving on to our board business. Item number 2, approval of RFP for CRA land not meeting the PRCRA plan objectives. I'll pass it to Mr. Copley for introduction.
So you might remember we had been approached by a resident on Betty that is encroached quite a bit on city-owned land that's actually part of the canal that the city has in that area. They've put quite a bit of a pull deck onto that, and we're asking for the city to sell it to them. Because that portion of the city is in the CRA, the only way that we could transfer that property is to go through the RFP process like we did, very similar to what we did with the 2 properties that we allowed Whiskey Joe's to do the ancillary parking for their operation. So what this proposal does is puts out that area, which is approximately 1,500 square feet or so, and allows us to accept bids on that. And then the board would make a determination to accept whichever bid that comes in for that. The second piece with this, so ultimately you're approving this proposal to go out so we could advertise it and receive those bids. But the second piece of this is that we really need to have some type of minimum bid put in this, which makes it a very difficult thing to do because of the nature of the land, where it's located, and the fact that it really doesn't have a lot of value to most places because there's very little that can be done. I looked at it and basically said that there's a portion of the property that the parcel adjacent to it is assessed at, I think, is $1.51 per square foot. This is 1,500 foot. It's going to be the same like that other property that probably isn't, high value, because there's actually 2 different square footage values for the property there. And so my guess is that the areas that are closer to the canal have lesser value than the areas like where the house is and to the frontage of it. So I would say that is the best measuring stick for the value of this. And so doing that math, it's $1.51 by the square foot, about 1,500. So it would be, and I didn't have it here in front of me, a value of about $2,200 as a minimum bid. But obviously it's something that you as a board can set as a minimum bid to establish for it. I don't know if I'm missing anything, City Attorney?
No, the Chapter 163 380 actually for this kind of a situation lets you determine a value determined to be in the public interest for uses in accordance with the redevelopment plan and in accordance with the reasonable disposal procedures that the city has. So it's not one of those biggest and best or anything like that you see a lot of times with the request for proposals, because it's within the CRA, you essentially get to determine what's in the best interest to promote your plan.
And so with that being said, you could easily say, we don't want to have a minimum bid, and it would be acceptable, and whatever you get is, then your determination, which is the best proposal for it. I would recommend that we do have a minimum bid, though.
Yeah, I would concur with that. The only question I want to ask, just because if I look and see what potentially could happen, let's say that the property owner adjacent to that bids the minimum bid of $2,200, and somebody comes in and say, "Hey, that's waterfront property. I'll give you $100,000 for it." And obviously, the city has no obligation to take the highest bid. Obviously, the goal here is to obviously
It's to
clear
right,
those lines up, right?
it's
So,
to right or wrong.
right,
What
exactly.
we're trying to do here, and my big concern is, hasn't adverse possession, doesn't that take over here?
No.
And why not?
Adverse possession means it's a hostile possession. We've known about it. We haven't cared about it. We haven't been fighting about it.
Yeah.
There's
Well, they're
many,
hostile, occupying the property they
we
built on it.
we know. The city's known. The city's known that they have it. There's no, we did the analysis. There's like 7 criteria for adverse possession, and
Okay.
she didn't qualify. And that was
Okay.
one of the many that I said didn't fit.
And my next question is, can we vacate the property?
I didn't look at that for this property. To vacate, you would have to find there's no public purpose in it. So possibly I'd have to look at it.
I'm aware of property that has been vacated within the CRA on Miles, similar situation, except there wasn't anything built on it, okay? And then the third piece of this is, how in the heck did this happen in the first place? So the city must have approved, or maybe it was not approved, all that paving that occurred in that property. I believe at some point in time, the real lines should have been to the water line. This is a landlocked piece of property, and nobody could have ever done anything with it, right?
Yeah, well, it's part of the canal.
It's
I mean,
part of the canal.
Yeah, it was part of the canal that was given to the city as part of the creation of the subdivision.
When you go down, and this was only looking at this one isolated lot, what does the adjacent lot look like? Does it have a strip like that too? Or is
You
it
mean
not?
going to the west?
Going to the west.
So to the west, it's actually, I'm not sure exactly where it happened. I think it may be the next property. But that is owned, actually the whole canal, the ownership goes across the canal to the other side. So I think the next 2 to 3 parcels all the way.
Goes all the way across, they own across the canal, so
Yes.
they could put anything they want.
No, I think there's restrictions on that. within
Rights
the-
to
yeah,
ingress
yeah,
and egress.
yeah.
What about to the,
But as
to
you
the
go,
east?
as you go to the east and to the south, actually, because those canals that go to the south
Right.
are
They stop
also
at-
owned
they-
by the city.
They stop by
But-
the,
But there is a lesser. I mean, if you look actually on the map, one of the things that they provided, the owner of 8720 provided this description, and you can see that on the east side of that parcel, they had also made a request to get that. So there is a strip of land similar to that. It kind of goes larger and smaller all the way to the end of the canal on both sides of the canal. And as you look to the east in the main channel of the canal, there is a lesser amount of acreage or square feet along that main canal that would be similar but less. I mean, you don't have the amount of encroachment in those other areas as you have
like
here.
you hear. Yeah,
I mean,
Pool
I will say that there are a lot of encroachments in the canals.
this particular canal,
Uh,
and the north-south ones
yeah.
as well.
I mean, you have more. I mean, what you would expect to see in terms of encroachments would be permitted encroachments, so seawalls,
Right.
docks, those type of
Lifts,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, you would expect to see those type of encroachments. And in fact, you have a process, and that's again, one of the issues that the owner brought up is, well, we have a seawall that is crumbling. Well, again, most seawalls, you go through a permitting process because either the canal was owned by someone else, owned by the state, some cases owned by the county, some cases owned by us. And the area that they're actually putting the seawall on is a part of that property. Not all the time, but there's quite a bit of that. And so that process allows you, as the owner, to put a seawall on that to protect your property. That's a part of the permit. You're allowed to do that. In this case, minus the whatever the 16 feet or whatever that distance is there. They would be allowed to put that on there to protect their other parts of their property. So, they don't wake up one day and, all of a sudden the canal is right next to their bedroom, right? That's why they put that seawall.
Is that part of the riparian rights, or how do you say that word?
Yeah, they can do that. What's different here is they took the land that's between the seawall and their property line and they developed it. And so that's the encroachment that we're trying to correct in all this.
But when they developed it, they would have had to pull permits.
Yeah. So this looks like it was done sometime back in the 80s.
Right.
So I don't have
we don't have
any
records
records of that. Yeah.
Well, back to my adverse possession. Back in the 80s.
Not qualified. Doesn't qualify.
I can tell you adverse possession doesn't qualify because I've already analyzed it. You might be able to vacate it. That is something I can look into.
And I thought I actually asked about vacation, and we couldn't do that.
I don't remember analyzing that part. So I'm happy to look at it and see. And we could do this, kind of at the same time. You could move this forward,
Well,
and I can figure that out. And if that's an option, we can come back and.
My concern is, what if somebody else buys this and now what do you do?
Well, so this is
That's
If you don't,
the quandary.
and then remember let's say you get 3 bids. You as the CRA get to decide which bid promotes the
Most
plan.
equity.
Yes.
And so that was the second part of my question, or actually the question is, let's say that we get something astronomical difference.
Right.
Is there any? I mean, obviously we would go with the $2,200 bid with the property owner because that's what we're looking to do. But are we putting ourselves up for any litigation because you just turned down $1 million offer?
There's no requirement that you take the biggest.
That'd be my only concern. Like I said, I don't
as long as you support your decisions or supporting what your plan's trying to promote.
Okay.
And the problem is that these people can't sell their property because we've got an encroachment that's creating a scenario.
They could correct it. I mean, they can clear the right of way, and then they wouldn't have the encroachment. Because again, the seawall isn't an issue. I know that they keep bringing that up, but I don't think that's an issue because they have a permit for it. And again, if that's the case, if they're what they bring up as the issue is an issue, then everyone along those canals have the same issue. But we're not out there. I mean, a number of those houses have been bought and sold, and so they don't have that issue. Their issue is they built a lot more on the land.
They encroached.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more land in between them and their seawall. I mean,
Right.
We set the precedent for other people, residents, I guess is the thing.
well, so I think the answer is yes, and I think we should. I think we should clean up all the lines. We shouldn't have issues like this where the city has a portion of somebody's backyard. It's not like not like we're using it for anything. It's just how it is. So we might as well
Clean it up.
And collect the ad valorem tax revenue on that additional property as opposed to just sitting there. We're actually eating the ad valorem tax on it because it's ours. And we're technically on the hook to maintain it. I mean, we should be over there cutting that grass, right? I mean, technically.
There's no grass, it's just concrete.
Oh, is that all concrete?
It's all developed.
Yeah, it's
Well, what's this separate? It looks like I got dotted stuff here, and then I got a sidewalk.
Maybe that is grass. I don't know. I
I'm
can't
pretty
read.
It's a hard surface.
Yeah,
But again,
two different hard
I think-
surfaces, maybe.
I mean,
Maybe one's a deck. Or something.
if you don't know this about me, You'll know it after I say this. So you don't know what that property is going to be needed for sometime in the future. Again, ask yourself why was that property given to us, and why wasn't it put in that land when they separated it? So my answer, again, and I don't know because I wasn't there when this was done way back when, but it's on a main channel. You never know when things start happening where you may have to go out there and clean that up or widen it for whatever reason. And so in their infinite wisdom, they turned over to the city more land so we have flexibility. When you give the land away, you're not going to have that flexibility. And if there is a need someday in the future,
Well, that's eminent domain, right? You take the eminent domain.
yeah, then we'd be spending money, potentially a lot more than what we're spending in getting in return.
Right.
And so I'm usually against this. And again, I know that it's an unpopular thing to say, but that land, there is always records showing that land is owned by the city. And because I can't give you a permit, I can't tell you what was permitted and what wasn't permitted. And so I know you may say, and the landowner say, oh yeah, we got a permit, but it may not have gotten a permit for that. They may have gotten a permit for the pool, and they said, well, no one will ever know, so why don't we just do this? So there's no way to know this, at least again, based upon what records I have to look at. So I guess I don't necessarily hold the same thought that the city said it was okay, because I can't prove that the city said it okay, right? I can only go by what's in the record that I have, and I don't have that.
Well, so I live around the corner from this canal, and when I go out, I have to make this left turn and go by this property, and I would assume it was her property to begin with, right? And I also say that it's plenty wide there, so the only reason I think maybe it was there is because the city actually owns those canals. Mm-hmm. Those are city-owned canals. As you get past this property, the property owner actually owns it. Like McClary's live back here. They actually own into the canal all the way to the other side, right? So, but this stretch along here and down the two finger canals, those are actually owned by the city. And so I'm assuming that for whatever reason, this lot was developed just like that, and they left that portion. And it's odd.
Right. Well, but again, I think, if you look at it from a developer's perspective, I get more money selling it than I do giving it to the city.
Sure, I get that.
So why didn't they sell it? There's a reason. I mean, there's some reason why they did it, and so again, without knowing what those reasons are, it's hard to say whether this is a good deal or a bad deal for the city, because they may have known something back in 70s, 60s, 70s when they created the subdivision that we don't know today.
Let me ask this. So in this, is there, I don't think it's part of this that we maintain right of way,
We don't.
but that's something that we could potentially add to that, right?
Well, they're going to sell it, right? They're not going to have. You're not going to. If you sell the strip, there's not going to be any city property back there anymore.
Well, right, but right of way is not, is it considered city property? Like in front of my house, obviously I have landscape, whatever, it's in the right of way.
It's not right of way. Yeah, it's the canal.
Well, I thought on the either side of the road is called is right of way.
Road.
Right, but into your.
It's an easement, no?
This
I'm not sure, to be
this
honest with
isn't
you.
an
No, I'm
easement.
saying,
This
what
is
you're talking, he's talking about the front of his yard.
Is easement.
It's an easement, right?
well,
Yeah,
no,
That's
No, if there's right of ways.
it's right of way. I mean,
That's not on a road.
this is part of the canal.
Both roads.
It's
Right. Well, that's exactly. So easement right of way, same thing.
I don't know if there's
No.
right
No.
of ways on
What's the distinction?
water. I think
Well,
it's
an
different.
easement, you can have an easement going across the piece of land that's not our responsibility to maintain. We just have the right to put a water line. I mean, if you look at a number of areas where we have water lines in people's backyards, we have an easement to put that in there, but we don't maintain what's on top. We limit them to what they can do on top of it. Like you can't put a building on top of our
Or we allow you to do that.
Right.
Like, for instance, the driveways and stuff. If the city needs to do something with water lines, they're going to tear them up. It's just, a homeowner can't say, no, don't do that.
Right.
Because we have
Right.
easement to do that.
So,
I mean, this this is similar to a right of way, but this is property owned by the city. So I don't.
You don't need a right of way if it's owned by the city.
Right, it's owned. I mean,
Right. We have, it's
that's why I don't think vacation on this is. I mean, I don't know how you vacate this part of this land.
I don't either. That's what I
Yeah.
have to.
I think maybe that's where I
Maybe there is a way, and I'm just not familiar with it. But I've never seen that on canals.
In other words, you're saying that this little strip isn't separately carved out. It's part of the canal is what you're saying.
Yes.
So what we're trying to do here is define what that strip of land is, and there's a legal description on that, and that's what's being addressed. Separate that from the city.
Right.
Okay.
I have a question. This strip of land, is this, because I haven't seen it in person, I just see the map here. Is this further out than the surrounding land, or is
No,
it
not really. I mean,
contiguous?
yeah,
Is it
I mean, it's
continuous?
Contiguous.
Yeah, it's in the same pathway as the rest.
Right, so it doesn't go like this?
It doesn't go out. No.
Okay.
and the property abutting it to
I
the
mean, if you look there to the top middle, you can see where the canal is.
All the way up to the top.
If you allow me,
absolutely.
you can see that we're talking about this parcel right here. You can see how that area is.
Okay.
It's straight all the way up until the end of this one parcel here,
Uh-huh.
and then starts to widen out a little bit and go out to the Gulf.
Okay.
I don't know if this help or not, but let me share this if I could. Share. Did you get the request? Yeah, share it again, I guess. Share. Okay, so here's the subject property, right? Here's the city-owned property along the bank there, and as you can see, the other property
That's
actually
our-
goes across
okay.
it. So they own all that goes
All the
along
way
with it, as
across.
well as the canal. It's just this property, for some reason, this little area here is
We're not looking at the L, we're just looking at the one on the canal to the north,
the
correct?
north side, right?
What
so
about
it's
the
the
little
south
one,
side.
what about the little one?
That's the south side.
So if you look down,
Just the curve.
Yeah, but there's a little piece here too, so if you do it to that one, why aren't we doing it to the one on the other side?
The other side.
she's talking about the east side.
To the
Yes, thank you.
on the
Yes,
east side there.
If you look down you'll have that all along the east bank, and even on the west bank of the opposite side. It's common to have that line kind of not go
Okay,
all the way
all
out,
right. That's my question, thank you.
but it's just that's a big piece, and obviously her pool deck and everything is there, and it's just a big piece. I don't know why that line is, like I said, it's kind of a mystery. It is a little bit larger on that east side too, but not uncommon. Like, here's one over here. If you look, it's pretty wide. Just the amount of filled dirt basically that in between the waters.
Yeah, no, I understand. That answers my question, thank you.
One of the things you want to consider there, those green lines approximate. They're not accurate.
Yeah, there's that's a
Ultimately,
leak.
yes.
It's at an angle, so it's probably plus or minus 3 feet.
I mean, that tells the story what they're trying to look at. There is a strip, but those lines might not be as accurate.
Yeah, but it gives the idea.
Yeah.
They answer her question, I guess.
Yeah, that's why the map that's on the RFP that gives you the
The legal
distances.
description of that property.
But going back to your concern, obviously, if you go past that, you see we've got a lot bigger problems on down there because we've got they own the canal.
Yeah.
So that would be something we would have to, if we need to do anything along there, we would also have to get permission to do that.
So, what is your recommendation, Matt?
is establish a value.
Which one? I mean, my recommendation would have been way back when, clear the right of way or clear the canal land we own. I mean, that's my position, but it was my understanding that we wanted to convey this land to that owner. So we put this together to allow the city or the CRA to offer the land for sale and make that a reality. So if you're going to do this, you need to establish what the minimum bid is going to be if you want one. My recommendation would be you'd want one. And then approve the RFP so we can go out to bid.
I make a motion to approve the RFP for the CRA land not meeting the PRCRA plan objectives. And the minimum bid price of $2,200, which equates to approximately $151 per square foot.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? Just going back to the question, do we want to potentially look at having an easement there? Or do you think it's not
Or-
needed?
You need to vacate it?
No, not vacate, that's sell it, but maintain easement in case we would ever need to do something there, which would fall into whatever the original intent you're thinking about. Would that cover that? So at least we wouldn't have a eminent domain issue in the future. We'd have easement to be able to do something with it.
We would need to know what that something is. Your easement needs to say it's the easement for.
It has to be
Canal-
It's
canal-
easement for.
well, canal traffic.
Canal maintenance.
Canal
Maybe,
maintenance travel.
If you have
Yeah.
something like that, that's something we could look at.
Maybe we need to set a piece of equipment up
But
there
I think
to,
if we need to pause then and see if that probably needs to be disclosed in this. If you're going to say we want to sell it, but we want to retain an easement, that's different than we want to sell it. Oh, hey, now that we've given it to you, we want an easement.
Right.
So I think if you want to do an easement, we need to start this over.
Right. And
And put
that
that in
would
there.
also impact what the minimum bid would be as well.
yeah. The only reason I mentioned that because it sounds like you have some concerns there, and obviously I want to.
Is there a short fuse on this? Or people asking to
Yeah.
move forward on this? So
I mean, I'm good to put the vote now if you want to do that. I'll just bring that
I
up for a
would
second.
do the east, I mean, we have to look out for the city as a whole, so doing an easement if we should need it, I think is not a bad idea. I mean, our job is to look out for the city, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, this has been going on for a long time. Another 2 weeks for them to look into it is not,
my
compared to what they've been, the amount of time they've been looking into it.
don't like I said. The only reason I bring it up is because like his reservation from that perspective, and I recognize that, and I want to value that. Knowing the property like I do, like I said, it's right around the corner for me. I can't imagine that we would ever need it for anything. Never say never, or whatever. But I just know that that's probably not an issue. So I'm okay without the easement. But again, I want to make a good solid decision. So I'll leave that up to the motion.
but that easement is probably going to limit the amount of action you're going to have on the property as well, which would kind of solve the same problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, it would deter
Sure.
potential buyers
Right.
if it's easement. And I'm not saying ease the whole thing, maybe just portion. Again, I don't know whatever staff thinks, but like I said, either way, I'm good.
You know, I'm looking at this thing from a standpoint of somebody spent money to do that, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's in the past. We can't justify, whether it was a good permit or not. It's a situation. Anybody look at the tax rolls to see if they're already paying taxes on this?
No, they're not.
They're not.
No.
They're not paying taxes on the pool and all that
Well, the
paving
pool,
around
well,
there.
the pool's on their
But
property.
what about all that paving?
I don't know the way that they talk about it, if it's that whole area or just the area that's on their property. Because when you look at the assessor's record, I don't know if you
Yeah, there's some extra.
Yeah, there's like the pool. I mean, they have
There's
those.
sidewalks and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah.
And
So they may have been paying taxes on that, even though,
Well, they wouldn't be paying taxes on the land portion of it. The
improvement.
improvements possibly.
So it would have to be written into their just parcel description.
Right. Yeah. Maybe if you pull up their tax record, you can see how far back that.
I remember hearing about this a long time ago. I can't even remember when. It must have been when I was on planning and zoning.
I
or something.
remember hearing it.
Because I can remember her saying she didn't want to work on the seawall or
They
something.
were trying to sell the property.
And
as I recall.
because what was the point? So this has been going on for much longer than maybe even you realize.
No, I know it's been going on for a long time,
And it's
but nobody's done anything with it. Now it's finally here.
but it's
So
it's a strip of land. If we haven't been able to go back and look and see why we have it,
So there's on the tax rolls. There's davits. There's those are on the opposite side actually.
Those are on the east
On the east side. Pool, jacuzzi, concrete patio, sun deck. So there's square footage in here. So I don't know what all is included. What's
Is there
not.
any dates when they were?
Driveway, sidewalk,
Any
concrete.
dates when those sidewalks and patios?
All 80. So 75 the davits, then it goes 81 was when the looks like to put the pool. Or no, the fireplace, seawall in. 84 was a pool, jacuzzi. 86 floating dock.
40 years.
91
Yeah.
concrete patio. 96 sun deck.
But they're paying tax on all that, right?
Yes,
So they're
to certain units of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So again, I don't know what is figured into that, but I mean, I think it's the right thing to do is to clear the lineup. So
We haven't needed it for 40-some years.
Right. So I've got a motion second on the floor. If that stands, any more discussion? Anyone public like comment? See no hands up, put to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to re-clarify that motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Hold on. Old business. Any old business?
Second.
We'll take that as no old business. I have a motion to adjourn on the floor with a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.